This week I only watched racing movies to prepare for the return of Formula One, which technically it already started a few days ago with the qualifying races, with practices, but so I figured that this was the perfect time to mentally prepare. But I didn't want to just watch these movies to see cars go fast. I also wanted to see if any of them would actually teach me something about race, because obviously I really enjoy F1, but the world of racing is huge. There's a lot of different types of racing, different cars, a lot of technical stuff that I absolutely do not understand. So I watched 4 racing movies this week to see 2 things. Which one is the best movie and which one actually taught me the most about racing. The first movie I watched this week was Gran Turismo, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I am gonna spoil this a little bit. That one was my favorite and it probably taught me the most out of all of them. Before watching it, I didn't really know much about the movie other than David Harbour and Archie Madekwe were in it. I honestly didn't even know that Orlando Bloom was it. But then again, he was also rocking the Victor Frankenstein 3000 for the entirety of the movie, so I genuinely just didn't recognize him either. First of all, this movie made me actually want to play Gran Turismo, which is crazy. Which I think it's pretty much the entire point of the movie. It's based on a video game, but it worked. But it's also based on a true story of said video game. What's interesting is that even though this is technically a biopic, it really doesn't feel like one. The events in the story are just so insane that it just feels like a traditional sports movie, but more entertaining. The premise alone is wild. A kid who plays racing simulators becomes a real life professional race car driver. Clearly, some things in this movie were dramatized or fictionalized, like the whole thing with Aubrey. But honestly, the core story is already just outrageous enough that it didn't really matter, I guess. But the thing that really surprised me the most was Archie Madekwe's performance in this movie. It was insane. He is an absolutely incredible and underrated actor, especially after the crash sequence. There are moments where he barely says anything, but you can see everything happening internally just through his face. You can really feel how broken and shaken up Jan is after that moment, and it genuinely makes you think about how terrifying it would be to be in that position. Makes you think a lot about that. Another thing I really liked about this movie is that most of the races actually happen in the latter half of the movie, but it never felt slow or anticlimactic. The movie spends time building up Jan as a character, so by the time that the races start, you're fully invested in whether or not he is going to be successful. He is just a very easy person to root for. But the biggest thing that this movie taught me is how physically brutal racing actually is. And I already knew that in theory, but seeing it from the perspective of someone who wasn't training their entire life for it really highlights how awful it is on your body. Because that is a lot of pressure that your body is enduring. The G-force, the endurance, the concentration that you have to maintain for hours. And beyond the physical part, the mental strength is also ridiculous that you have to maintain throughout this entire thing. The mentality you have to maintain when you don't podium, when you lose, or especially when you crash. The ability to get back into a car after that is something I don't think I would ever be able to do. I would feel so defeated all the time. Next, I watched Ford v Ferrari, and I will say I did spend a lot of time comparing this movie to Gran Turismo. Mostly because I accidentally started with a really strong movie, but I digress. I was also comparing them because they both build up to the 24 Hours of Le Mans, which we'll talk about in a second because I have some thoughts on that race. Going into this movie, I had really high expectations. And I don't want to say that I was disappointed, but I was definitely expecting more racing. We only really got a few racing scenes throughout the movie, and majority of the movie was Ford trying to build a car which is capable of beating Ferrari, which makes sense because it's based on a true story. That's what the true story is. But the title Ford v Ferrari made me expect a little more direct competition between the two teams throughout the film. I thought we were going to be getting a little Ferrari POV kind of action, but it really wasn't that. Instead, it's mostly Ford just trying to figure out how to compete at all. That being said, this movie did win an Oscar for Best Sound Design, and the sound design is fantastic, especially during the car testing scene. Chef's kiss. The engines, the gears, the mechanical noises, it all feels very incredibly immersive. Honestly, if this movie can win for Best Sound Design, I have no reservations about F1 the movie having a shot, because the sound design of that movie was even better than the sound design in Ford v Ferrari. Another thing this movie highlighted really well was how much work it goes into building a race car. Not just a car, a race car. There's so many tiny details that they're constantly adjusting: the weight of the car, how it moves through the wind, how the brakes feel, how stable it feels at high speed. Now, did I understand what they were talking about? No, not at all. Not even close. But I did understand how much work it goes into it. There was a lot of very technical jargon in this movie, but it did make me appreciate how insane Formula One engineering must be, because F1 cars have even less space to try and produce even more horsepower. Now we need to talk about the 24-hour of Le Mans, because both Gran Turismo and Ford v Ferrari treat it like it's the most important race of the world. And I did not know what it was before going into these two movies. And if you don't know what the 24-hour Le Mans is, it's exactly as it sounds. It's a 24-hour race. The winning team is decided by how much distance they cover within those 24 hours. And if you're like me and your first question is, why would anyone willingly do this? Because the track is huge, the weather is very unpredictable, the terrain changes, it looks like racing hell. Literal racing hell. Now, one interesting thing, that it is a team race. Usually there's 3 drivers that rotate shifts throughout the race, which is cool, but from a storytelling perspective, it kind of makes it slightly harder to frame it as one singular driver being the hero, because it has to be multiple drivers in order for this race to be won. But clearly it's prestigious because both of these movies built their entire narratives around their hero winning this race. The next movie I watched was The Fast and the Furious, the original one, the first one. I don't even want to get into the rest of them right now. And I genuinely don't know how to feel about this movie. It is aggressively early 2000s, which makes sense because the movie came out in 2001. It is dropping in early 2000s energy and nostalgia, which is not always a good thing. There are definitely some things in this movie that did not age well. Why are we having people who cannot say these slurs say slurs? But I will say my tiny little pea brain did appreciate watching cars go fast. What can I say? I'm a simple woman. Even though there aren't actually that many races in the movie, there's just a lot of fast cars, chaotic driving, which I guess kinda counts, but not really. The soundtrack is great, the editing is fun, the whole movie is very chaotic, high energy vibe. But if I'm being honest, I did not actually expect to learn anything about racing from this movie. Sue me. And guess what? I was correct. I did not learn a single thing that I can apply to F1. It's really more of a cop car movie than it is a racing movie. They do talk a lot about car parts, especially engines, and I did kind of learn that apparently Honda Civics used to be insanely fast and also good enough to participate in high-speed DVD player heists, which is information I'm sure I'll never ever use again, but I have it now. Which is really wild watching this movie and knowing where the franchise is eventually gonna go, because this movie is cars goes fast, people steal DVD players. And somehow it evolves into a franchise revolved around saving the world with cars. I don't even know if cars are involved in saving the world. I just hope it is, because if it's not, we've strayed far away from the plot. Honestly, maybe when F1 goes on summer break, I'll watch the entire Fast and Furious franchise just for a little fun, just for little shits and giggles. You know, we have fun over here. And finally, the last movie I watched was Cars. And I know it might sound insane, but I genuinely was watching this movie thinking, are they not going to give Chick Hicks any penalties for intentionally causing crashes? That's how I know I'm losing my mind, and how I know I'm prepared for the F1 season. Because why am I upset about a cartoon car? Which, to be fair, he was causing crashes intentionally, and he should have gotten penalties for that. He did not deserve to be Piston Cup champion. Whatever, what do I know, right? Putting that aside, the opening race sequence in this movie is actually incredible. The animation still looks insane. Honestly, this might be one of Pixar's best animated movies ever. It was smooth, dynamic, and really impressive for the time this movie came out, which was 2006. Also, unrelated, Life is a Highway must be one of the greatest songs ever used in a movie ever. It just fits the vibe of this Americana vibe so well. And I will not be taking any questions on that. Now, most of the movie isn't racing. In fact, there are 2 races. 3 races in the whole movie. It's more about Lightning McQueen learning humility and becoming a better person. I don't know. But there's one line that perfectly sums up all of the movies that I've watched this week, which is, you ain't gonna win unless you got good folks behind you. And honestly, that kind of is racing. Beyond just does the car go fast enough, how many accolades have I won, if you don't have people behind you, your teammates, your race engineers, whoever is in your pit, you can't win the race. You literally cannot. It is not a one-man show by any means. Also, one thing that threw me off in this entire movie is that it doesn't really feel like a typical Disney or Pixar movie. They're saying things like hell, making slight more adult jokes. They said sexy, and it just caught me off guard, which isn't a bad thing. I don't think any of those things are just are bad words, but knowing how much animated movies for kids are censored these days, I don't know, it's a little refreshing, I think. Overall, this movie taught me absolutely nothing. When I tell you nothing about racing, nothing about racing. I didn't really expect it to, if I'm being honest, because what is it going to teach me in a kid's movie about racing? But I had so much fun with it. It's just such a fun movie, so I think it was worth it. And I watched Cars 2 earlier this week because Cars 2 is my favorite one in the series, but it's just so nice. It's just such a good movie. Obviously, it is based more around NASCAR, even though in the second one, again, which is my favorite, they start getting into more of the international. So, there are actually two different ways that I could rank these movies. The first one is, did they actually teach me something about racing? In that case, my ranking would be Gran Turismo, Ford v Ferrari, The Fast and Furious, and Cars. So at the end of the day, I am just a girl who likes to have fun. So my actual ranking is still Gran Turismo at the top, and Cars, and then Ford v Ferrari and The Fast and Furious are kind of top. I just enjoyed Gran Turismo way more than I thought I would, and it genuinely got me excited for F1, despite it obviously being a completely different racing circuit, but I digress. It was just such a I don't want to say feel good because there's a bad things happen, but it's a very fulfilling sports film. Now, Cars. I completely forgot how funny this movie was. It doesn't try to be something it's not. It's got stuff for kids. It's got stuff for adults. And Cars is one of the last movies to ever be produced on VHS tape. So do with that information what you will. Now, for Ford v Ferrari and Fast and Furious, neither are bad movies, but they just weren't for me. I think I just had higher and different expectations for what these movies would be, and neither of them were that. If I had not went into them with the main mindset of I want to learn something about racing, then it could have been different. But beyond that, I just thought the contents of these movies would be different, and that's okay. They don't have to be a copy of what the synopsis says that it's going to be. And now you may be wondering, Nala, why haven't you watched F1 the movie if you're preparing for the F1 season to start? That's because I'll be talking about it next week. Oh my god, in what video? Stay tuned for that one. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and tell me what your favorite racing movie is. I would love to know. And I'll see you in the next one. Smooches. Bye.